All
We're
right.
laughing because Phil Barth is really fun. You guys are in for a treat. Be sure you stick around till the end, though. There's some really great value that he provides at the end, and it's just a fun ride all the way along.
Yeah, it really was. It was very casual, very just like hanging out with some friendly guy.
Yeah.
And
The jokes were flowing
well,
because it was so easy to make things feel fun.
yep. So subscribe please and tell your friends. That allows us to do what we do. And if you like what we do, then help us keep doing it. Support Blast and Compton Cowboys. Drink adrenochrome cola.
Yes, and we have some new news coming with adrenochrome cola soon. So be on the lookout for that.
And get ready to ride with Phil Barth.
Sis, hallo? Blijven.
Stuur zeker wegen dem.
Yo je iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Moped Outlaws. Today, our guest is Phil Barth, and he knows a lot about frying chickens.
And baseball.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a serious radio voice you got there, Mark. I like that.
We have different beginnings. Like mine's much more
exuberant.
All
right, well, let's do your beginning, and then we'll see which one works better. No, I'm just kidding.
I forget.
I could do an imitation, but that's us doing us. We're here to talk to Phil.
Amen.
So with all of the massive success you've had, you've been able to create access to some of your favorite autographed sports memorabilia, it looks like.
Yes.
So is that a Gretzky hockey stick?
No. And honestly, I can't remember the name on that one. I picked it up recently. Okay. I all the rest I can tell you. Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Frank Robinson.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the baseballs are all Hall of Famers, Gibson, Bob Feller, etc. The hockey stick I just found at a thrift store for like $10 and was autographed. Got a friend of mine who is originally from Saskatchewan. And I told him the name. He's like, oh, yeah, left-handed guy from Saskatchewan. And I was like, well, I could tell that by the hockey stick. Right? The left-handed, not the Saskatchewan thing. So it was something. I was like, $10 for a hockey stick. How do you turn that down?
Yeah.
Right. And you have a red bat, and you're in Cincinnati. So I'm assuming you're a Reds fan.
No. Yes, it is a red bat. It's autographed by George Foster. I grew up in Cleveland, outside of Cleveland. So I am a long-suffering Cleveland sports fan. There's the autographed Cleveland Cavaliers banner from the Mark Price days. But yeah, I mean, there's no other kind of Cleveland sports fan than long-suffering. But I'm a long-suffering.
Yeah, I'm a long-suffering Minnesota Vikings fan.
There you go. Yep.
I just suffer long. Hey, but Phil, your whole thing is about life isn't suffering, right?
Right.
So can you give us a bit of flavor of what that is?
Yeah. So in 2015, I had a heart attack. And I thought, I'm too young for this. And there's no family history until you get to the mid to upper 80s. And that doesn't count, right? Everybody has that. Didn't smoke. Wasn't hugely overweight. I could have stood to lose a few pounds, and I did. What they told me afterwards, after the fact, was, well, at first they said it was a small heart attack. And I'm like, well, shit, I don't ever want to face a medium one then because it sucks, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it was just a small one that required 2 stents and a year of recovery. Oh, man.
Wow. Okay.
But the other thing they told me was, you've got too much stress in your life. And I was like, do I really? But the doctor said, and the answer is, yeah, I totally did. Right. And the doctor told me that you need to promise once you get back to work, which it took till the January the next year. Once you get back to work, you're going to unplug and take 1 week off every 3 months.
Wow.
I said, okay. And my wife was in the room, so that meant it was a binding contract.
She was going to agree to it.
Oh yeah. So and it was the last week of March, and she said, you said it's been 3 months, you're taking the next week off.
Wow.
And so what we did was we took a staycation. I was still in the recovery process, but we said we're going to take a day trip to the zoo and a day trip here. At the end of the first day, we had gone to the zoo. I went out on Facebook and I put, here are the great things that happened today. Just listing them, saw the gorilla exhibit. And if you know anything about Cincinnati, this was back when Harambe was still alive. People in Cincinnati still have not given up on, rest in peace, Harambe, whatever. Anyway, it put all that out there and people gave it likes. Like, oh, this is really cool. And why are you on Facebook? So everybody can validate you and make you feel good and give you the pat on the back. So the next day at the art museum, I said, I got to do this again. Right. And so I did. And I went through the entire week and I said to myself toward the end of the week, I wonder how long I could keep this going. And it has been close to 10 years. Just
all right. So when you see
good.
All right. So that's what it is living each day, noticing the good stuff.
Right. And what happens is after you do it for a while, you have trained your brain to find what's good. And at the same time, you have trained your brain. You can only make room for so much, right? So all of the bad stuff starts decreasing, what I call the optional stress, the things, getting involved in arguments on Facebook. We've all got opinions.
Right.
Nobody post an opinion on Facebook and nobody's going to say, you're right, I'm wrong. So, right, it don't happen. Well, so I take out that optional negativity, and my stress was lower just from that. And then I did a few other things, and we can talk about that later. But that lowered my stress, and that made my health dramatically better.
And you've had, like, if we look at the past, let's say, ever since the COVID internment, life has created some wonderfully challenging elements to noticing the good.
Oh, absolutely. And I say the optional bad. So don't turn on the news and binge watch people complaining. Don't go onto Facebook and get involved in the arguments or even read the damned arguments, because if you read, you slow down and Facebook goes, that's what you want. Here's some more, right? And I would say you could unplug from Facebook, but then I miss my niece and her husband and their kids in Florida. And I want to see the cool stuff, the pictures, the positive. All right. So yeah, let's talk about COVID for a second. It was negative for a lot of people. What we did was we as a family, we kind of huddled together. We watched Tiger King, which, if you remember,
the world.
Well, our life isn't that bad. I mean, we didn't get buried and eaten by a tiger. So, and the other thing, we live on a country road. So my wife and I would take a walk every single day. I was working from home. We would take a walk. And I wound up getting, in the year 2020, 10,000 steps every single day.
I want to let Mark talk, but I have two quick things here. One, it sounds like your wife, like your relationship, it sounds to me just has increased 100-fold. Like, I think your wife is super happy with this choice you made back. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering how you deal, like, we all talk about that inner critic and that voice that is telling us we're not good enough. How have you noticed this practice has allowed you to notice your own good and kind of less of that noise, that inner noise?
Yes, absolutely. And I was actually talking about it before the heart attack, and I call them, and this is why we have the background, those chickens inside of you. And I use rubber chickens to illustrate it. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not whatever enough. And we got to ignore them. And ever since I stumbled onto rubber chickens, life has been so much fun. We got to ignore them and go forward, right? You were given on this earth some skills, some talents, and you ought to make the best of them. And if you listen to these little chickens that tell you you're not good enough, you're just shutting yourself down, and you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting those around you that you could be sharing your gifts with. So I am really big on getting them to shut up. I've got a book coming out, Fry Your Chickens. And if I had a copy right here, I'd show you the cover. But I'll put a link. But it's all about that. It's all about the times when, for example, asking, she's now my wife, but a coworker that I really liked out on a date, and hearing those chickens going, she's out of your league. Well, yeah, she was, and she's going to tell you no. Well, she didn't, but I had to struggle through that conversation with them, and I tell ways that you can do that, and then we got the date and another date, and we've been married 35 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations for sure. So this is your second book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when does it come out?
It comes out paperback June 1st.
All right.
So very soon after you hear this, you'll be able to get it, and we'll be sure to put a link to whatever source you've got, Phil, whether that's your own bookstore or that big box place that people order from and has electric vans. Those who shall but not be named. But your first book, tell us a little bit about that.
So that was and by the way, there's 3 books. It was a very Cleveland specific book. The very first book I ever wrote was about Cleveland sports. And but we're here to talk about positive things. So let's just
Nice stig. That was good.
So I don't want to dwell on your first book, but I do want to just touch on it.
Yeah. Okay. So the subtitle, and this will tell you all you need to know, is the Cavaliers win the NBA. It was from 2016. The Indians win the American League Championship. The Browns win a single football game. Period. So, and I said, if you like happy endings, go back to front, because the Browns were the last thing that happened in the year. All right. Well, let's go.
Second book.
Yes. Let's go to that. The great things happen every day. So as I mentioned, 10 years worth of posts. Somewhere around 2018, my wife said, you know what? You got to write a book that I would read, because she's not a fan of the Cleveland sports. So why don't you take what you've done on Facebook and social media and kind of put that into a book somehow? And so we did. And what I did was I took the posts and kind of organized them by section. So this is our annual family vacation at the beach. This is Christmas. This is a group of dad jokes, you name it. And I put them in there. And then a little introduction to each section, description behind some of the major stories, and then an introduction and a conclusion. And the idea was to get people to read through that and start their own gratitude practice. And so, that's the pitch. It made my life better. Why don't you see if it can make your life better, and try gratitude? And I've gotten feedback that it has helped a lot of people.
Got it. And so was this prior to you becoming more of a public speaker and someone who engaged at that level? Or did this flow out of did the book flow out of that, or did public speaking become a part of it? How did that journey begin?
So it flew.
Woo, chickens.
Where the hell did that go? It was an add-on. So in 2011, I had been in Toastmasters for a number of years, and they have an annual World Championship of Public Speaking. So I'd been in that realm for 10 years, never did much. I tried to compete for the World Championship of Public Speaking. I always lost. But in 2011, the story was about asking my wife out on a date and ignoring the chickens inside of me. That got me to the finals. So 25,000 people started. I was in the final 9.
Nice.
And so that was the start of, speaking about chickens and so on. The heart attack then gave me another great series of stories about how do you manage stress. It's sometime after that, somebody said, would you come and speak? We'll pay you. I was like, yeah. Hell, I do this for free.
You say someone said that, but that, like, a lot of people would love to get into the public speaking game. In this case, it was super organic. What was the relationship that had that person ask you? Like, how had that relationship come to be?
I think they had heard me in Toastmasters. So, and the other thing that has happened along the way is I'm on a bureau called eSpeakers. And somebody said, well, we need, they did a search, right? We need somebody from Ohio that talks about stress management. Hey, would you come and speak at our event? I've had a couple of those.
Got it. Okay. So if I may, Greg, let's talk a little bit about Toastmasters for a second. because I think most people don't realize, and there's a lot of amazing human beings who don't feel like they can be vocal about things or present. And one of the things I learned as a Toastmaster was that wasn't true, even though I have a gift for gab and I love talking for people, but that people who don't have that predilection, that addiction, whatever, for attention, they can actually find a safe space where they can refine their abilities. Right. And so are you still a Toastmaster? And what can you say about Toastmasters International? That's,
Yes, I still am a member of 2 clubs. I haven't had time to do the speech competition thing anymore, but that's exactly what I use it for. Is I get a new idea and I take it to my club and I run by, and it's raw. And sometimes I'm practicing something for a keynote and I want it to sound a little bit better, but I'll have people, well, the speech isn't ready yet. That's the whole idea. Bring it to a place where we can give you constructive feedback. We're all friends here. And I encourage people, you're bad in Toastmasters so you can be good when it really matters. When you're talking to your boss or whoever, get the practice there. I am a big fan of the organization and I use it. I spoke at 2 different clubs this week on a story I'm working on.
And people don't realize that most of the great stand-ups did not get their start in Toastmasters.
I should now have drank coffee just before all over. No, but you know what they do that's in the same vein is before they go on the big stage or before Jay Leno went on the Tonight Show, they were practicing at a little club and looking to see what was working. And that's exactly what I do. And one of the best jokes I've ever done in a Toastmaster speech, it wasn't a joke, but it was a humorous line. I just happened to think of it and threw it out in a club, and a couple people went, ha. And it was a small club, and I thought, there's something there. And I used it on a bigger stage, and the audience just loved it.
So do you do stand-up?
No, I never have. I have great respect for people who can do stand-up. I've talked about, should I do it? But what I do is speaking with a lot of humor.
Yeah. And how did you get the chicken idea? Was it because people threw them at you to try and critique you, or how did that happen?
Okay, so the chicken idea sprang out of the 2011 speech. Rubber chickens happened, I don't know, 6-8 years later. I was working. I retired last year from my IT job. Well, we had a big innovation forum down in Memphis, and I went, and all of a sudden the guy said, we need to start frying our internal chickens. And I was like, where did you get that from? And then he put the video of me in the contest, unbeknownst to me. And then he said, and congratulations, we want to give you a couple things. He gave me a Yeti cooler, which was nice. And then he gave me one of these.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then my sons, my 2 oldest, are in a heavy metal band. And they said, can we borrow it for a video? I'm like, sure. So this chicken is being seen, that original, the OG chicken, seen around the world. And so somewhere along the line, as I started delivering these keynotes, I said, yeah, because I would be the chicken and all that. I was like, I'll bet people would like if it was a rubber chicken squawking. And it just ballooned from there. So now I give these out to the audience. It's got my little QR code to get to my website on it. Cool. And people, we're all kids at heart, right? I will go to the couple tables in the back and I'll say, look, when I come out, I'm going to be tossing rubber chickens. Please grab them and don't act like, oh shit, I'm under heavy fire. And you get the first table or 2 to do that. And then everybody's standing up. Please give me a rubber chicken. And so you're tossing them out. Everybody is ramped up. It's done all the work for me. And then I get up there and I can be funny and they're going to laugh and we're going to have fun. And the hour goes by like that.
All right, I have a question for you because you've been doing this rubber chicken thing and talking about the inner voice and association. 2015 kicks your ass. So it's like you're going along this path of positivity and asking the girl out. But 2015's not enough. What do you think was the disconnect?
Okay, so the disconnect was I never went full on positive until after the heart attack. All right. So I'm a geek. And I took all of my, you're just going to say, God, why do we have this idiot on? But I took all of my posts from Facebook, 2008 to 2024, put them into files, loaded them into ChatGPT.
Oh, this is so geeky. Oh my
Right?
God.
Right. And I said, now go through them and tell me how many were positive, how many were neutral, how many were negative. Before the heart attack, on average, 4 positive for every 1 negative. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
You're holding your own at that.
Yeah.
After the heart attack, any year it was 10 or 15 to 1 positive to negative. And it was fueled by, hey, here's the great things that happened today. And all it was the numerator got higher, because there are a certain number of things in life that suck, right? You're going to have shitty customer service, stuck in a traffic jam, whatever. And I still put that out on Facebook.
Right.
So I'm going to get the negatives on the denominator. It's just that we raise the numerator way up.
Okay.
So, knowing what I know about ChatGPT, how did you cram so much of that into ChatGPT? Like, getting ChatGPT to absorb that was not an easy task.
Oh God, no.
That's like making digital foie gras.
1 year at a time. And I've got a premium ChatGPT. I pay $20 a month. It's worth it. But every once in a while I do say, what the hell am I paying you for? Right? Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to have to try again. It's like, So there's the negative. Now I need 10 positives, right? But it was back and forth until
so it wasn't in one fell swoop then.
Oh God, no.
Okay.
I kept real good breadcrumbs, because I'm going to have to do this year.
Right.
And I'm going to do the same thing for LinkedIn. And it's getting better. ChatGPT is getting better. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh.
There's a lot of podcasts about ChatGPT, but not a lot about Phil Barth. So we want to stay with Phil.
Well, and I love what my geeky takeaway from this is, as a human being, I have to up my positive game. Like, I can't just be 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. It's a real big leap into positivity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think 3-to-1 is break even, or 4-to-1.
Right.
There's been research on that. And it's all about the hormones you're putting in your brain, right? So if you're stressed out all the time and you're negative all the time, you're putting the bad hormones. You can Google the names. I can't remember them right off. But those are causing heart disease. Those are causing brain problems. There's connections to everything. Right. So you get the positive working for you.
Yeah.
So you do the occasional speaking event now.
Yes.
You're writing a book.
Yes.
And being someone who's retired, it's not necessary work from an economic standpoint, I'm assuming.
Correct.
How do you know how to price these things? Like, how do you know what to charge for an appearance? And how do you know what the proper price for your book is? Like, I just throw it off the bat, like I'm going to go, oh, $24.99 for the hardback and $19.99 for the softback. That's just what I would go with.
I went back and forth. So on this one, you put it on, I'm using Ingram Spark to do all the publishing there. And they're a pretty cool platform. And they said, well, here's what it's going to cost to manufacture it. Well, clearly I need to be more than that. And then I actually, again, used AI to say, okay, here's what the book looks like, sounds like, etc. I'm not well known, but what do you think? And it gave me a range, and I priced it in there.
And does Ingram Spark do distribution too?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, the last one was the big box place. I went Ingram Spark this year because they will do it for libraries if the libraries are interested, Target, etc.
As you said before, with my FM radio voice, I'm available for a audiobook of your new one if you want.
Okay, love it.
And that's
there was, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard a live pitch on Moped Outlaws.
I was just gonna say that's why we
no chickens were harmed.
No chickens were fried. Love it.
Well, you don't shy away from ChatGPT. We've learned that. So I don't know. Is there some day-to-day stuff you use ChatGPT for?
Oh yeah. And I do speak occasionally on ChatGPT. Okay, we got to get back to the pricing of the speaking. We'll get there.
Right, there was that question a few minutes ago. It was just a vehicle for a joke.
Okay.
Really.
It got interrupted.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, let's talk about the ChatGPT. That it's your Copilot. It's not Microsoft Copilot because that sucks. But that's another story for another time. It's you have to drive it. You can't just say, oh, write an email for me, because everybody will know that ain't you, right? It helps me. So I look for ways that I can save time by using it, or do brand new things that I never thought of before. All right. So that's a short answer. And in any given day, I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but I know I'm going to use it for something. It's just sitting there. You can do voice, whatever. It's my assistant and it's infinitely patient, which with me, that can't be easy. All right. So let's go back to pricing
on the book, the paperback and the
Oh,
hardback.
the book.
No, we got that. The
We got
talk.
that.
The talk pricing. Yeah. How do you price yourself in the public speaking market?
Yeah. It depends. I have it. It's kind of like, right. If it's someplace that I want to go and it's people that I want to hang with and it's something I really want to talk about, I will not price it as high as I had one last year that they said, we need a speaker this month. We need it on stress management because our people are stressed out because they have to work 60 hours a week. I'm like, I got an idea why they're stressed out, but you're not going to like what I'm saying. So I priced it high. And they said, well, that's outside of our budget. I'm like, really? You are flying 45 people in, and I know how much that costs, and you're putting them up in a nice hotel. And so I held the line on price because, like, number one, I got a vacation in the middle, right? So it's very up and down depending on and somebody will say, this is what we have in our budget. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to drive over. It's a local ride. I'm going to drive over and I'm going to make, let's just say for the sake of argument, $1,000 on that particular thing. I'm going to spend part of a day there. They'll probably feed me, give me speaker gifts besides. We're going to have a hell of a lot of fun. I would probably I wouldn't do it for free.
Got it. Understood. Yeah. And are you part of a speakers list? Like eSpeakers seems like Podmatch for public speakers. Is that what that
I'm
is?
on that. And there's another one. AAE speakers.
And is that the main thing, or is it word of mouth?
Sounds like Mark's vying for a job as a speaker.
Word of mouth. So
Yeah.
how this whole thing got started, the most recent run was in 2023. I put in call for speakers. I'm sorry, 2022. Call for speakers at a bunch of different conferences. I had a virtual assistant give me a list of them. Filled them out. One of the conferences, I had been there as a project manager 15 years before. And they said, hey, we'd love to have you. Just do a symposium session. We don't pay. I'm like, okay. So I went and spoke. And it was in Boston. And 2 days before the conference, the Guardians, Cleveland Guardians, formerly Indians, were playing the New York Yankees in the playoffs. And my wife said, don't lose your voice. And they won it in the bottom of the ninth on a walk-off hit. And we were screaming and singing SpongeBob SquarePants at the top of our lungs. And so what happens on Tuesday? I got half a voice. The lady who's running the conference goes in the back of the room because she wants to see if I'm any good, right? I got up there. I said, I apologize. I lost some of my voice, but I did it rooting against the New York Yankees. And every one of those Boston people gave me a round of applause. And we were off to the races. She smiled and she said, would you come back next year at some of my conferences and keynote?
Wow.
Boom.
Nice.
So we got keynotes from there. And then at those, hey, could you do a virtual one for this one? And next month I'm going to be in Amsterdam, Belgium, and Prague. And all three of them came from that very first one as it spreads out through the family.
Beautiful.
It sounds like there's an element to your life in this positive outlook that's going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. You have to. I mean, I've always been somewhat of a go with the flow kind of person, but going with the flow here was, and I remember in Boston, Cleveland was still in the playoffs, and I was going to go back to my room and watch that, but some of the speakers said, hey, you want to go have a beer with us? And first inning, Cleveland got their ass kicked in like 5 runs or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I think I want to go have beer. So, yeah, you meet people, go with the flow, go to the restaurant, and just that led to more events. And this is one of those where I love the people I'm working with in this. They're genuinely nice people, and we have fun.
It does seem like there's an element of getting out of into the public realm, you
Yes.
have to be a nice person.
Yeah.
Although our
almost-
president might be
yeah.
showing the opposite of that. Not to get too political.
I'll tell you, I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, Be Useful.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said that really stuck with me is you aren't competing in a bodybuilding contest when you walk out on stage. You are competing in the bodybuilding contest the moment you get there. Everything is being watched. Just consider it that way. And so I said, you know what? He's right. When I walk out of that hotel room, I don't care if I didn't get a good night's sleep, if my flight was late, if I had a shitty day, it doesn't matter. When I walk out of that hotel room, anywhere in there, I need to be on, and I need to be nice, and I need to be friendly. And it turns out I had another speaker saying, nope, it's when you leave your house because you don't want to be a jerk to anybody on the airplane, Uber, anything.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's brilliant. That just reminds me, speaking of Arnie, I was thinking of his ex-wife, Maria Shriver. I just heard her on a podcast, and she was talking about, she works with Alzheimer's. And one thing she said in older age is you have to start learning things that are new to you and interact socially. They found that those are the two big components for mental health. And she also mentioned how she didn't get into politics because she saw people were one way in the living room and totally different out in public. She didn't like that disassociation.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there are times, especially after you do a keynote, I love doing it, but it's like, man, dang, I want to go back to the room and take a nap. And sometimes I do that. And sometimes it's just like, get some coffee, power through, you'll get to sleep tonight. Go talk to people.
That does open up the door that there is so much to keynote speaking more than, I think like you walk out on stage and then you go pick up your check, but it really is a full all-encompassing venture.
Yeah. Yeah. And every audience is different, right? So
Yeah.
you need to tailor it for the individual audience. Which is,
you ever been up on stage and suddenly you're like, whoops, and you make a quick left turn because what you had planned wasn't going to work?
I don't remember it's like a ship where you just change your tack a little bit.
Okay.
I tend to put humor into my introduction. And so somebody's reading the introduction. If it falls flat, I know, okay, you can't come out there and go, hey, it's great to be here. And if everybody's laughing, it's like, okay, this is my audience. We're going to run right from the start. So you kind of got to adjust it up and down depending on the audience.
Right.
So does that mean the chicken comes out later or earlier, depending on?
No, I always throw the chickens out right away.
Okay.
Because I've already set that up with the people in the back of the room. It may be a little, the pacing might be a little slower, but what I tend to do is involve the audience. Now, there have been times it's like, hey, tell me about what your big, bold, brilliant idea is. And nobody answers. Nobody raises their hand. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do now? Right. But eventually somebody will raise their hand. Or I will say, and this is a true story. I was in Boston. I go to Boston a lot, right? And this speaker said, tell me about your big idea. And I was so scared, and I'm the fry your chicken guy, to get up and say what my big idea was, but I did it. And right afterwards, I felt so good. And I tell him my big idea, which is to be $1 million public speaker. And you're sitting there going, these people are going to say, you're an asshole. Or the chicken's like, you're never going to make it, blah, 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 right? But I did it, and I felt really good, and everybody gave me a round of applause. And then what happened was other people were willing to get up there, probably because they're like, oh, if he did that, right? So you get that first person up there, and I bribe them. It's like, best idea wins a book. And we're going to play games and so on. And once you get them going, and sometimes it's a little harder, then, pick me.
Got it. So this is a non sequitur. Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel?
Fallon.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate
Why?
that.
How come Fallon?
Because he worked his ass off to get where he is. I don't know that. I know the backstory that Jimmy Kimmel was on Win Ben Stein's Money was one of the first things I saw him on. But the story of Fallon, if I remember correctly, is he wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, and he worked to get that introduction and get on there. And he really worked hard. And everything I read about him is he's a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about your story as I was looking into this day and how we were going to talk was that you say enthusiastically that I won $32,000 and I want to be a millionaire. And I'm like, wait, dude, like that's only 5 figures. So again, this is another example. But tell us, what was that experience like?
All right. So the very first time it was on, I turned it on. I was in a hotel and I turned it on. I was like, this game show's cool. And it's multiple choice, right? It's not like Jeopardy where you got to know obscure shit and you got to actually
Yeah, you have a 25% chance in every category.
every category, right? And you don't have to do it in the form of a question. And so I started watching. And at the end of the show, they said, just dial this 800 number to get into the contestant pool. I'm like, well, that's easy. And so it turned out it wasn't quite that easy. And I pursued it until you couldn't do it dialing. You had to actually do in-person auditions. And then I did an in-person in Chicago. I flew to Chicago. And then I drove to Indianapolis for a second one. I failed them both miserably. And then the third one was in my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio. I drove up there. And in between the second and the third one, I went out to the internet and I said, how do you pass a millionaire audition? Somebody's got to be bragging about it, right? If I had passed a millionaire audition, you bet I'd have it out there. And so I found a couple things. And one of them was they give you on your form just a number 2 pencil to fill out the answers, but you don't have to use it. So I had a 4-color pen and highlighter. And then the other one was tell your stories, the stories that they can envision Meredith Vieira asking you about in between the questions. So I had one in red marker, circled it. The producer looks and, hey, tell me about this. And I got in the pool and got accepted.
Wow, brilliant.
And then day of competition, like we see the edit, but it's actually take hours, right? Tell us about the production.
Yeah. So maybe different now. They would shoot 4 episodes per day. And you got to get there a day early just in case you get a run of people bombing on the $100 question. So the first day we're in the green room, there's about 13 of us and we're having fun cutting up. Then the next day, you're going to probably be on. And so I was on the 3rd episode of the 4 days, if I recall correctly. I think it was the day before they take you out and they go, okay, we got to practice getting in and out of the hot seat and giving the hug to Meredith and so on. And it was a producer there we were hugging, not Meredith at that point. But when I was sitting there, and then Michael Davies, who was the executive producer at the time, came out and was talking to us. And I'm sitting there in this kind of cold studio, and I started shaking. I'm like, holy shit, this is real. I'm actually going to be on this show. I always said I was going to be on this show. I told everybody, but oh my God, this is actually happening. And so I was like, you're going to have to get it under control. So I decided that before every question, just close your eyes for a second. When the question comes up, it's just you and the question. There are no cameras. There is no Meredith Vieira. It's just you, just like when you practiced. And that worked. It got me through to 32,000. Had 2 lifelines for 64,000, took a guess. And
who'd you call?
I had a room full of people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my $64,000 question, when I was in high school, I had a teacher. We had a quiz team. He said, you need to learn Greek mythology. And I never did. It's like, who the hell wants to learn Greek mythology? Y'all know what the subject was for my $64,000 question right now, don't you?
No.
Greek mythology.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Greek friggin' mythology.
So did you just guess Athena and hope for the best?
Well, so I phoned the room. I was like, somebody must know Greek mythology in the room. They didn't. And then I still had a 50-50. And that left me with a free guess, and I guessed incorrectly. The teacher who harped on me all year to learn Greek mythology didn't know Greek mythology. He was one of my phone friends, and I called him afterwards, and I told him that I missed the last question was Greek mythology. He said, good thing you didn't call me. I would have just laughed my ass off at you for 30 seconds.
Why? And there's the rub of life. Even those who teach us have no.
Well, and there's a little bit there about how to get on. Do you want to be? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Which I don't even know if that show's still happening. It doesn't show up on any of my things, but it'd be fun to do. Do you have any other game show aspirations?
No, I auditioned for Jeopardy one time and realized just how little I knew in the world. So,
Deal or No Deal Island sounds fun to me. Like that's what I would want to do.
Oh, God.
That would be cool.
Well,
We actually had a lady in the green room that Millionaire was going to be her third game show she had been on. She was like real bubbly, and she had been on the one with the whammies, and I think Wheel of Fortune.
Got it. And The Floor is my current the one I watch now. The Floor with on Hulu.
The Floor?
Yeah, it's
There's
a game show
called The Floor.
Yep, and it's all about categories and knowledge and going head to head. Everyone listening, I recommend you watch it. It's enthralling, and the host is entertaining. And he's so charismatic. I don't remember his name.
Linoleum or wood?
It's head to head. The guests go against each other.
That's cool.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
an
it's fun. It's a fun game.
right there.
Fun game.
All right,
So,
Phil,
welcome to our game show on Moped Outlaws. Vespa or Pooch?
Hey, wait a minute. Besides being a $1 million public speaker, do you have any big dreams that are percolating?
The book was one.
But what about is?
One of the things we're going to go back to ChatGPT is I want to take all of the things I've written, put them into some sort of GPT, and that way I can leave a legacy for kids, anybody who wants to learn something. And I came up with the idea last year, and then people have been doing this, and that's just out there to kind of, I don't know, capture all the memories. It's for what they're worth. I think my kids
would be the Phil Barth GPT. Basically, you train it on your knowledge base, and then people could ask you posthumously.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, I've got a long time to do that. That was another one, and I'm working on, with my son's help, because he works with a lot of young kids, and he said the kids would love this. Rubber Chickens Old Maid, where you have each of the rubber chickens, they match them up, and we're working on the design, and then the Old Maid.
Ooh, the red one.
The red rooster of regret. And so it's getting kids that lesson that the one thing you need to fear more than anything in life is regretting not doing something. Is going to your grave with the book not written, the song not written, etc. And this guy, he travels with me to all of my keynotes because it makes a good impression. So that's the other one. And those are the big two. I made a very conscious effort at the start of the year to not have 100 goals, because that's always been, let's do this and this and this. And so I said, first quarter, the book, period. Other things might get done, the book, get it done. And then I put it out on social media. Book's going to be done. Book's going to be done. And
so do you use social media for accountability then?
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. So you really have learned to use modern technology as a tool in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A positive tool.
Yeah. I don't get hung up on the technology, even though I'm a geek. I don't get hung up on the how's it doing, what it's doing. It's just, okay, how is it going to help me? How's it going to help me make the world a better place?
That's excellent. I like that.
Yeah. How do you feel about digital privacy, especially around AI?
It scares the shit out of me.
I'm
not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here, it's not a problem. It is a problem. So I tell people, when I work with kids, I tell them, don't put anything out on social media that you wouldn't want on the front page of the paper.
Yeah.
Same deal with AI. So if I want to work on finances or anything like that, AI doesn't get to play. I'm not going to put my financial information, how much you make, et cetera, out on AI. And I hear that Copilot is, in its own little world when you do it with a corporate. I don't trust like that. And so I use ChatGPT, but I also am wary of what I put out there. Same deal with social media, right? There are some things that just don't need to be put out in the public.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant about the front page, because that's really real. If you're putting it online, you're putting it out to the world.
Yes.
So,
yeah, and today ChatGPT announced that they were going from partial memory to full memory. So if you opt into that, everything that you put in is now part of their training mode, and it remembers everything you put into it now, not just whatever you.
Well, I just heard, like, there was this article I read this morning, 6 things not to put into ChatGPT. One of the pieces in the article was people were getting other people's ChatGPT, yeah,
Responses.
yeah, like their conversations, for lack of a better word.
That's
So
interesting. Is that a glitch or is that a hack?
in the article, it was written as a glitch that it wasn't supposed to happen and was happening. So one of the 6 things was ChatGPT itself,
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I think what you're saying, Phil, is in life, there are these like red flags. But if they're 1 out of 16 in our life of green flags, then we're going to be living a happy life.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Chat GPT, I say it's an intern, and you wouldn't sit here and tell your intern, "This is how much money I make, and this is where I'm invested in this and this." You wouldn't tell the intern that. You don't tell Chat GPT that.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to ask you a little bit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, since you live so close and it's part in your hometown. What relationship do you have to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and what do you think was the greatest reason it ended up in Cleveland?
Okay, I can answer the second. Well, let me answer the easy one first. I have never been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because it opened after I moved to Cincinnati, and when I get back up to Cleveland, it's to go to a baseball game and hang out with my buddy. So I know. My kids, I keep saying, let's go up to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They love rock and roll. I mean,
yeah, they're in heavy metal band.
Exactly. So why did it end up in Cleveland? I think it was because of
Mott the Hoople, Cleveland Rocks.
Yeah. Mott the Hoople and Ian Hunter, Cleveland Rocks, and it was because Alan Freed was his name. The original rock and roll show on Cleveland radio and the Moondog show. And I think that's why it wound up in Cleveland.
And it's the joke everyone says when they make that tour joke. It's like, "Hello, Cleveland," like that. There's something which is interesting because it's not actually the top line in most people's thinking. Like, Ohio itself has a place in American history that is exemplary in terms of all of the different things that have happened there. And in particular, it's unknown how much Ohio has contributed to our national legacy. Like, everyone will say, yeah, New York, right? Easy, or LA or Chicago, right?
Philadelphia.
But Ohio, it's the home of the American Football Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? And in Cincinnati, where you are, that's where Hasbro was born, right? Hasbro is an amazing piece of Americana, right? So what else could you say about the area that you spent most of your life in that contributes to this legacy of greatness, American greatness?
Okay, by the way, I'm going to rep for Ohio, Neil Armstrong, too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
John Glenn, yeah. So a lot of astronauts. I love growing up on the lake. We actually lived about an hour outside of Cleveland to the west. I had a great amusement park right across the bay from us, Cedar Point. So I grew up riding roller coasters, which when I was younger were a lot of fun. Now that I'm older, not so much, but it happens. The winters with the lake effect snow were just brutal. But and at the time you're like, oh, it's cold, and you look back, you're like, that was fun, building snow forts, and then the summers with the lake and going to the beach, a lot of cool stuff there. I grew up on a farm, and we had peaches for part of my childhood. So you would walk out, go past the yard to the peach trees, and pull off a fresh peach, and just eat it right there. And great memories there. We had African lion safari, which I think is still up there, like 2 miles from our house through the woods. One time, my buddy and I hiked back through the woods and actually came to the cage where we're seeing lions, like on the other side of us. And I'm thinking, hope that cage works.
Yeah.
So that was cool. We lived in vacation land, which Memorial Day to Labor Day was a very busy place, and the rest of the year it was fun.
Got it. So Billy Joel sings about a New York state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
How would you characterize the Ohio state of mind?
Okay, so part of the reason I'm going to say it's laid back, at least for me, and the reason is, and I still get this in Cincinnati, is you better be flexible because today it's going to be 80 degrees and tomorrow it's going to be snowing, and then the next day it's going to rain and you're going to need a freaking arc. So I think it's more laid back than, and maybe that's because I'm in the country, but I think a lot of LA and New York are very fast paced, and we're not necessarily as laid back as some of the places I've been down south, but I think we're fairly laid back and I hope flexible.
Got it.
Do you think that, is there something your parents laid the seeds for that you've germinated and grown in your life?
Yeah. I think my dad was fairly laid back, and I'm a lot like him. My mom's side of the family was my mom to an extent, and then like her uncles were just like, you must do it this way, right? But dad was laid back, and I kind of take after him. He was also he liked to sing, and he sang in a country band and loved the stage and loved getting up there. And I got that from him. Not the singing talent. Hell no, people would pay me to not sing, but the wanting to be on stage and talking in front of people. Because as you said earlier, people are like, God, I'd rather die than speak in public, right? I don't get that.
What about your mom? Is there anything that she laid the seed for that you're like?
I'm trying to think.
Well, do you think it's possible that that part of you that's like, I'm finishing this book first quarter, that comes from her?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. She was very disciplined younger. We also had, my grandma also lived on the farm because mom and dad would work. So my grandma would take care of us, and my grandma was a teacher. And so she had all her stuff, and she would teach us whatever. And she was a really good teacher. So it was a really nice way to grow up. My grandmother was a single parent, got divorced when my mom was very young. Wow. And so she was tough, but cool. Tough, but cool.
All right. Pete Rose, reinstated or not?
Reinstate. I have gone back and forth. I have gone back and forth on this 100 times. And I read an article a while ago that said the offer to Pete Rose was, we will suspend you for a year or something if you just admit. Okay. He should have taken the plea bargain. All right. I get that. He didn't. So they suspended him for life. All right. My struggle is, okay, if you were willing to suspend him for a year, how bad was it to suspend him for life? All right. Now, understand that my favorite player growing up was Ray Fosse, and Pete Rose ran him over and hurt him. And so for a long time, I'm like, well, you don't get to go to the Hall of Fame, buddy.
Yeah.
But having read that, and then the other thing I think is, if you reran baseball, start to finish, and every player never showed up with a hangover, never showed up and half-assed it to first base, a lot of players would have better stats. Pete Rose would be exactly the same because he went all out every play, loved the game. Did he do some stupid stuff? Of course. But I'm like, I hate to go all Cincinnati here, but I think, go ahead and put him in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's like with Barry Bonds. I think Barry Bonds should have there shouldn't be an asterisk.
Yeah, I mean, he hit all those home runs.
Yeah.
I could do steroids like him and still swing and miss.
Right.
Probably more faster swing and miss, but,
Right.
So, you're trying to draw a really fine line here. Well, Bonds did steroids. Well, there have been people who broke the rules. I mean, I grew up watching Gaylord Perry. I love Gaylord Perry, but he cheated. Every time he pitched, he cheated.
Tell us about that.
So Gaylord Perry was famous spitballer. I got, let's see, Gaylord Perry right there. Well, you can't see it, but an autographed baseball. And he came to Cleveland and won a Cy Young or something. And it was fun to watch as a kid because Billy Martin was a manager. Billy Martin was fiery, and Billy Martin would lose his shit getting them to try and check Gaylord Perry. And they could never find it. He was always had Vaseline or something on him, and they could never freaking find it when he was in Cleveland. And I just thought it was hilarious. because I like watching Billy just go. You can see the veins in his forehead throbbing. I love that.
Mhm.
And it was Cleveland baseball, and there wasn't much else to get interested in. So Gaylord Perry kind of doing the playing the game with the umpires and the opponents. I think he got into their heads more than anything.
Yeah. Like maybe half his career or more, he didn't even need to have the Vaseline because everyone was thinking it was there.
Yep, exactly. And I read his book as a kid, and he said he put KY jelly, and I'm like, I don't have a clue what that is as a kid, but he used
it's water based, so it would dissipate, so it's less detectable.
Kentucky jelly.
Yeah, Kentucky jelly. Good for you. Awesome. I'm just so entertained. I think I could go on forever, but we're getting close to wrapping it up here. So, Mike, what is it that you look forward to besides your book? Like beyond the book, you're retired. What's driving your zest for life right now beyond the book?
All right, so it's in the you can't see, but behind me I've got a whiteboard, a 4x8 whiteboard that I got at an auction for dirt cheap, but that's another story. To bring laughter to as many people as possible, to lower as many people's stress as possible, to live life to the fullest.
Wow.
And so I put stuff up against that, right? Is this going to help me help others? Is this good? And I enjoy that. And I get to travel, and I get to take my wife and at least one of our sons, sometimes 2 or 3 of our sons, to the events, and just to have a good time. Gary V, somebody asked him once, say something that's going to motivate me. And he said, "You are going to die." Right? What is 100% fatal? It's being born. You're going to die at some point, right? So you might as well make the best of it. You've got a limited time here. Get out and kick some ass.
Yeah. All right. So what's your favorite dad joke right now?
Oh my gosh. My favorite dad joke. Okay. One my son brought to me a while back was, so a fly is walking around and a mite lands on his back. And the fly looks and goes, "Are you a mite?" And he said, "I might be." And the fly said, "That's a terrible joke." And the mite says, "What do you expect? I made it up on the fly."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's
very
the best
good.
one I've heard in a while.
Very, very good.
Yeah. I have another. There's a picture of this guy from the video, and he's right down by the drums. And I asked my audience, "Do you know why they put him down there?" And nobody ever says anything. And why? Extra drumsticks. And the audience groans. And I say, "I'm a dad. A groan is as good as a laugh. Thank you."
Amen to that. That could be the title of this podcast. A groan's as good as a laugh.
There we go.
I will take it.
All right. Well, that brings us to the question that we ask every guest. And so if you did your homework, you've had time to think about this. And if you haven't, we're just as happy because you're good off the top. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Foo Fighters.
Ooh, how come
That was
so
quick.
I've got some Eminem on my playlist, but I really love the Foo Fighters. I love Walk. That's the one that pops right into my mind. But they just, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't listen to them when they were first out, but I found them later on because if you like this, you like that. And I was just playing, and then some smart ass said, "Well, you ought to check out this Kurt Cobain guy, right? If you like Dave Grohl." I'm like, shut up, right? But
are you telling me you didn't really know who Nirvana was when they were?
No, I knew Nirvana. I knew them right from the start. I remember where I was when I found out Kurt Cobain had killed himself. I knew them. And then, so somebody was being a smartass, right? It's like, try Nirvana. I was like, shut up. I've listened to Nirvana.
Okay.
So I came to Foo Fighters a little late, but I have made up for it.
So how do you feel about the Nirvana reduce stuff that they've been doing with these other singers? Have you seen any of that?
I have not.
Yeah, that's a YouTube for you. There's been a couple of things where they, Chris Novoselic and
Dave Grohl.
Oh God, Dave Grohl. And what's the other guitarist name? Who's in the Foo Fighters?
Right.
Anyway, we're sorry, bud. We love you, but we forgot your name. Anyway, they did a gig, I think at the Grammys, where they came on and they did an event with 2 singers, one of whom was Dave Grohl's daughter. And they did another gig. They did another thing at the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary concert where they came on with another singer.
I gotta check
And
it out.
yeah, they were fun. And you can just see Dave just like he's in his element. And so it's great to see Chris Novoselic being able to just play with Wild Abandon.
Love
Phil, you clearly play full out in what you do. And I'm so glad that we didn't talk about the roller coaster story. We'll leave that for another time. But much love to you and the family and your mission. And definitely check out the TikTok videos of the burro who loves rubber chickens. If you haven't seen that yet, that will
I've
definitely
seen
lighten
that.
your day.
Love that.
Yeah. Thanks again for coming on the Moped Outlaws. It's been a sweet ride.
This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Recording stopped.